Welcome back to Game Galaxy, and today I have a very special guest, my friend Joey B/3, the Fit Gamer, and I wanted to bring him on today to have a conversation about somebody in 2018 who played Shenmue for the very first time. So we're going to get some of his thoughts and reactions to it, and we're just going to have a discussion of what it was like to play Shenmue in 2018 for the first time. And Joey, welcome, sir. I'm going to put this headphone in so I can hear you. How are you, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, sir.
I'm really excited to talk about this game.
Yes, sir. So, you beat it, man. You beat Shenmue 1. Tell us a little about your experience, man.
I did. So, as you mentioned, I'm first time playing it through 2018. I've never played it on the Dreamcast. Never played Shenmue 2, I think was on the PS2, right?
No,
or the
Shenmue
Xbox?
2 was on Dreamcast as well, but only the UK and Japan got it. North America did not, but then they ended up bringing it to the original Xbox in the US.
Gotcha.
So,
I have never played through any of the Shenmues before the HD remaster, so this is my first time playing it, and I absolutely loved it. I like you, I really like cinematic games, and this game really just... I don't know how it passed through my radar over the years.
Yeah.
I never had a Dreamcast, but
that's a shame.
Yeah. I went straight from like N64 and PlayStation to PS2.
Oh,
but, yeah, playing through it, it's an amazing experience, and I say it's an experience because it's so cinematic. You have very in-depth characters, and just so much detail in the game. And that's one of the things I really like when developers put details, extreme detail in their game, like details that people can pass over because they're just rushing through it. I like to take the time to look through the environment and just really get immersed into that setting and that world. But an amazing, incredible experience.
When you talk, if I can interject there about when you said details, it's like when I had Keith here to discuss just our impressions of the game, I talked about just the sushi shop. The fact that you never have to go in there for the story, but if you do, the chef will he goes through a routine. He grabs rice, he'll cut up fish, he does all that stuff. So I love that you said detail, because there's an incredible amount of detail in that game that people could just overlook. And that was something I had to remember going back to it, because I played games since I was a young child, right? But going back, it was kind of like, whoa, I need to remember to slow down. There's not always a giant reticle on the screen with X amount of meters away for me to just run to like a moth to a flame. So
exactly,
it was cool.
That's one of my favorite aspects of the game. When I talk about like my first impressions, I got a few notes here that I want to look at. But when I talk about like first impressions, it does not hold your hand at all, and like modern games do with waypoints and things on the heads-up display all over the place. It's very minimal with the heads-up display. You got your watch and everything, but it's like other than that, it's like it shows the few interaction buttons, and that's it. And that's one of the things I love. I hate when the heads-up display on a video game is way too crowded. It takes away from just looking at what the developers have worked on so hard, and it doesn't hold your hand in the sense that you have to go through each objective the same way. Like I mentioned something to you. Is this a spoiler-free discussion, or?
I would say we can have spoilers. We'll just announce them beforehand. I think most anybody who's going to watch this video on my channel has played Shenmue, so
I would hope so. But so when there was a part where you're supposed to get to warehouse number 8, the first one, right? And you're supposed to sneak in there somehow, and I couldn't figure out how to go through the window in the back, right? And then I mentioned that I went back to the house, slept, and the next day, Goro, one of the bullies that you switch to the good side, he distracted the guard in the front, and then I got in through that way, and you were like, wow, I never knew you could do that. That never happened to me before. And I'm like, that's so cool to hear from somebody who's played through the game multiple times, right? And, it's something new that you never heard about or happened to you during the game.
It always makes me wonder, how many because I'm kind of a creature of habit. I kind of sometimes do the same things over and over again.
Right.
Even if I'm playing an older game where now we can save our states, I'll like jump in the hole, be like, load, jump in the hole again, It's like, what? Do something different, you fool. So
I know, it's like that definition of insanity.
Exactly.
Right? The same thing over and over,
Exactly.
expecting a different result.
Exactly, and so I'm just like, what else like that did I miss? But I think when talking to you about it, I think that's one thing that didn't age well with Shenmue, where like you have to kind of stare at things in first person. Like for example, the old woman who's looking for the Yamamoto house. You can't just roll up on the name tags and press X or whatever. You have to like stare at it in first person, and then you find it Yamamoto or whatever. So
yeah, speaking of that experience, I was very upset when I couldn't. I knew where the house was because I looked at the map on the street, but I didn't like figure out how to get him to recognize the house or whatever. I would knock on the door and he's like, "Oh, maybe they'll be back later."
And what happened to me, it had been so many years that I played, when you're going off to get Nozomi, I knew immediately, I'm like, oh, I have to go borrow Ito's bike. So I run there, and I'm like, I can't prompt it. So I'm like, okay. So I ran all the way down to Dobuita. It's like 2 a.m. No one's down there. And I'm just, I hated it because my wife is watching as the first time experience this, and I'm like, this is not cinematic. In the form of like this girl is in peril and trouble with a gang that could like possibly like rape her, kill her, like all this stuff, and I'm just running around the town like an idiot. And so I went back, and then I was like, and then I looked at it, and then you can push the button, and I'm like, that's kind of that's game design that I think has kind of that's not a good choice.
So
that's something I would say.
Speaking of that, like if that's one of the main gripes I had with the game, is that there really wasn't a tutorial to show you how that works.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, I don't remember being prompted or like having a little tutorial on how to do that. And going back to like first impressions, when I saw the first cinematic that where your father is fighting Landi in the beginning and whatever, I was highly impressed with the animation and the mocap. I didn't know there was motion capture in this game. Back in '99, right? Was when it was released.
Yeah, 99. Yes, 99 is when it came out in Japan, and 2000 is when we got it over here in North America.
Yeah, and I mean back then it's like motion capture wasn't it wasn't the staple of video game development.
Yeah, true that.
Animation.
That is true.
Today, like almost everybody, whenever you're animating now, it's like always mocap, especially with real people.
Yeah.
And also the textures, like seeing Landi's robe and everything, and the color and the detail.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is 1999.
What's crazy about that is there was a disc that came with the original Dreamcast one, and if I tried to reach down and get it off the shelf, I'm so clammed up against this glass case, I'll probably not go for things. But there was a disc in there called like Shenmue Passport. It had all these kind of different videos on there showcasing the stuff, and I don't remember what the video quite was, but it was just the characters' faces really close as the camera was going around it, and I think it was just showing off the graphics. And it's funny because those are very stylized anime type faces, video game faces, and so you look at them now, it's like, but I just remember they had an old man where it's clearly just that texture wrapped around that geometry of that model. Right. But I remember looking at that and being like, oh my god, it looks so real. We would go on it.
Kind of reminds me of the first Max Payne game.
Exactly.
They had like the real life faces.
It was that era.
Over the geometry.
It was that era. It's so funny because there was I don't know if you've ever watched this guy. There's the online magazine called The Escapist, and there's a reviewer there called Zero Punctuation. And he's a really funny guy. I think he's Australian, or he's originally British, lives in Australia. Anyway, his whole shtick is he's really tough on games, really funny, and he edits his stuff together where there's like no pauses, and he's really rambling fast.
Right.
And so I just remember him talking about, maybe he was reviewing Mafia 2, but he referenced Mafia 1, and that was the era of games where the face textures looked like everyone was bashed in the face with a shovel. And I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, it's like caved in. It needs a little more polygons to those faces. Sure. But yeah, the faces in Shenmue also, and like the eyes and how they blink and everything, I was very impressive. The mouths move, back then it was still kind of games where sometimes their mouths didn't move.
Right.
When they spoke.
We never saw that kind of stuff, man.
With the 3D models. Another thing I noticed right away was the sound. I like the music. The music fits the game very well.
Yeah.
I wish for the HD remaster they would have not re-record the voices or the dialogue or anything, keep everything, but maybe like try to remaster the sound to remove a lot of that compression and hiss and stuff that you hear from that kind of audio file. But
it makes me wonder if that was a situation where the master recordings, as it were ever saved, or if they if they originally like recorded them in a compressed way. I don't know, because
that's possible.
Yeah, it's something that like it was jarring at first, but I got used to it just because like I'm used to Shenmue sounding like that, I suppose. But yeah, man, it is something that it's like, come on, guys, you couldn't have gone back and.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't want like the re-recorded voices, but
sure.
like it reminds me of like how the first Resident Evil game was. You have like the cheesy dialogue and delivery of the dialogue, but yeah, just that compression. That was distracting at first, but after you just watch the first cutscene, it's like I don't even remember like having a issue with it or anything.
Yeah. And Shenmue has good voices and bad voices, of course, that are funny. Yeah. Especially like I let it go, but some like there's some funny ones like of the NPCs that are just like, oh no, I'm tired. Let me go. And I think I think the problem is Eric Kelso did a lot of he was the guy who did like Fukusan. He did a lot of the NPCs too, and you can hear that timbre of voice in it. And this is probably gonna bother some people. I'm not a big fan of him in general, and I think, unless I'm mistaken, I think he did the English voice of Ren, which I don't like. And Ren is a character in Shenmue 2, which you haven't met yet. But I just love the Japanese voice of Ren. Is like he's that brand of Japanese who like like trilling that trilling tongue. I spoke nonsense, by the way. That wasn't real Japanese. Sorry, Japanese speakers of the world. But that trilling tongue, like he's like that street thug. And in this, you have like, my name is, I don't know. I'll get used to it. This is my first time playing Shenmue 2 in English as I'm going through it now. So
yeah, I remember you saying that in your other video with Keith. And another just quick first impression thing was that once I started exploring the world and stuff, just the immense amount of like detailed environments. Just at the Hazuki dojo and stuff. You have that pond with the fish in there.
The koi fish.
I mean, it's just like stuff like that like you can just like take a minute and look at. You don't have to. There's no interaction with it, but and then you like go throughout the house and just see like the different pictures on the wall. And speaking of going through the house, the whole like drawer opening interactivity thing, that is awesome. I don't know why more games don't do that.
Sure. And did you look everywhere?
I really want that. Yes, I tried to look anywhere I could. I'm like opening every cabinet, every drawer.
As far as I know, there are 2 scrolls in the house. Did you find them? Okay,
yes,
cool.
I did.
Because there's
I was very happy to find those because having as many martial arts moves as possible is always.
There's one in Fukusan's room, and then there's one like kind of in that laundry basket thing in that one back hallway. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
I went through like every closet and then I forgot to like open the other door to the closet to look on the other side. So I went through again.
You found the Sega Saturn, right?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention.
Which is funny because the game takes place in
Sega Saturn.
1986, and it doesn't, the Saturn wouldn't have existed.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
But it's still cool though. And I actually, on my playthrough, I would buy chocolate or chips, whatever I could to get as many chances to win a video game as I could, and I did this time.
I won a game. I don't remember which one it was. I just remember you're like kind of on a surfboard or something.
Well, so you got Space Harrier then?
Yeah.
Yeah, Space Harrier.
Yeah, that was really
cool.
Yeah,
that's the one I chose. I think when I originally, I would always usually pick Hang On, because I used to like that a lot. I still love racing games, but I really loved racing games back in the day with Outrun and all that. But this time I was like, I want to do Space Harrier because I love that game.
these were actual games.
Oh yeah,
right?
these are they're arcade
yeah,
games made by Yu Suzuki, who's the person who made Shenmue. They're all.
I mean, that just shows the attention to detail. Right
those
there.
are Yu Suzuki arcade games. So that's why he also made Outrun, my favorite like arcade racing game or driving game. And in Shenmue 2, you can find it's kind of hidden away, but you can find an Outrun machine, which is awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Really?
And then when you beat the game, as long as you found it, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, you could, on one of the discs, you could put the disc in and just choose to play Outrun if you wanted. You didn't have to load up the game. It was so cool. So you being an avid, current still practitioner of martial arts, how did you appreciate all of the martial arts in the game as being kind of grounded in reality? I mean, they are real martial arts, and I think, how exciting was it that like Ryo essentially was like, a form of like Shotokan karate almost, even though I mentioned this in Shenmue 2, when an old master asks what his style is, he says jujitsu, but clearly his moves replicate karate, so I don't understand that. But But I think it's an exciting adventure of like, Ryo, you can imagine, is confident in his skills, but he's being open to this whole other world of like Chinese kung fu and these other arts from different people. So I don't know, just talk about the martial arts aspect of it and all that.
Well, like I mentioned before, how the game doesn't like hold your hand about like what you're supposed to do and how to do it. I really like that aspect about the martial arts in the game, like the actual gameplay. In terms of controls, it's very, very simple because you have your punch, your kick, and then basically your grab or evade buttons, right? So, in terms of the way the martial arts look, they look absolutely realistic because they use motion capture for most of them, right? And then when you're actually fighting somebody in the game, it feels realistic in terms of you're gonna get hit. You're 18 years old in the game. So yeah, I mean, you're a young guy. You haven't been practicing your whole life, and they don't tell you how to fight in the game. Like even when you spar the first time with Fukusan, like it's just like, go for it. I mean, you don't know what you're doing, and all you have is your movement.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the same for you. For me, my first free type battle was when you intervened the bullies with Nozomi and the kid in the park. I hadn't even sparred Fukusan yet, so it was just like,
exactly.
Oh, you're in.
Yeah, I didn't, when I played through, like you said, I didn't spar with him yet.
Right.
I didn't know you could. Yeah. And then
I don't think you can until that happens, honestly.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that would make sense, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, that was my first fight too, when you intervened with Nozomi in the park, and I like had the feeling of, don't lose this fight. You gotta show your stuff in front of Nozomi.
That's right.
And you gotta make sure that you protect her and don't lose the fight. Yeah. And I don't know like what would I didn't know what was gonna happen if I did lose the fight. Like would I be able to go back and do it again?
Yeah.
Or was the game just gonna progress with me like losing that fight and somehow like progress through the story?
Yeah.
So it just had that stress of like, you better win. So, and I was getting down on my life bar.
No, me too. I hate to say it, but I was awful that first fight. I was like, what is going on? I suck.
I immediately started looking at the move list, and I'm like, all right, forward square, just hitting like trying to hit the moves.
Good news is, if you don't want to try to do moves, I think that's why I was dying. I was trying too many moves. They do have nice combos with punch, or kick, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You can kind of...
I definitely want to do a Fit Gamer Fight Move video for his punch combo and his punch kick combos. There's so many of them too. Once you start playing around with the combination.
So that's a great point to bring up for my viewers who are not subscribed to Joey B. His link to his channel will be below. He does a wide variety of different content. One of the cool things he does that I've always enjoyed is he'll do these Fit Gamer Fight Moves, where he breaks down martial arts or fight sequences in games and will bring it into the real world, break it down, show what he likes about it, what's not realistic, what he doesn't like, and it's just a whole lot of fun to watch, and there's some really cool ones in there. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you started off the series doing moves from Assassin's Creed, right?
Yes, yeah, very first like video Assassin's Creed, and we did like 20 moves or something like that for a while, and then we started moving to different games because I wanted to get in some other ones. But
a lot of Batman.
we did a lot of Assassin's Creed. You got Batman Arkham. You got the Hitman. Some of the Hitman.
I'm
movies.
really excited for you to do the Shenmue videos because I know a lot of your viewers are in some form interested or practicers of martial arts as well, or martial artists. I think that's great because that it may expose them to this game that they didn't even know about, and that's what I'm really excited about. And I hope they all go get it and we make bigger fans of this series.
Absolutely, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your passion with this game and actually getting me a copy of it.
For sure.
And just playing through it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey man, it worked out beautiful because.
Yeah. But the martial arts, in terms of realism and realistic martial arts, I like the feeling of the gameplay for the fighting because you don't have the lightning bolts above their head telling you that you can counter. There is really no counter button. There are some moves that you can do to counter their strikes, but there's not like a counter button that you can just press and then he flips them over or whatever. So timing is a huge factor, range and timing. Like for you to back up and have them encroach on you and then you start to fire your attacks, it's so realistic because that's really what you strategically do in a self-defense situation. You have to have that range and timing. And then especially when I wanted to mention this, I have it in my notes, that when you get to multiple opponents, it becomes really difficult in the game.
Yes.
And you're gonna get hit because they start to surround you, and it's not like other games
where they wait their turn.
Where they wait, you'll be in like a middle of a combo and you're striking this guy, and bam, you get hit upside the head, and you're like, what the hell?
It's irritating.
I was like about to take this guy out, and then one of his friends jump in. But what's awesome too, again, going back to realism, is that if you take the real strategy of stacking your opponents to where you're fighting one at a time, it works.
I guess, one thing I like now that we're talking about this is that, like, you can definitely get combos in this game, but it's very much like an actual fight is. It's like chess, where a lot of it, especially because there's multiple opponents, it's managing threats one move at a time. It's what is the right move to do in this thing, and that's why I think there's so many moves. It's not, you're not stringing it together like you're playing Tekken or Dead or Alive. It's like I need to do like a sweeping here, and then I need to like do a reverse. Like it's very one move for one move kind of thing. At least how I played. And whenever I tried to get fancy, I would get my ass handed to me, essentially.
Absolutely, yeah. Once you get trying to do like a bunch of spin kicks or you have those in your arsenal, but when you try to do them, they're slower. You're getting off the ground. If you get hit in the air, you're going to be knocked on your ass. It's like, again, realism. You don't want to be throwing those flashy kicks out there in the street when you're trying to defend.
For sure.
Especially against multiple opponents.
I love, I just love Crawl Cyclone, the sweep kick. I use that because that has good. I like that one. I also like against really tall opponents. Like there's the very last guy you fight in the 70-man battle.
I remember.
I think it's back forward. It's the one, if you have it leveled up, it's where he kind of does a one-armed handstand and kicks underneath their chin. I think it's called Mud Spider, actually. If you, you're not familiar.
Oh, I have that one, but he slides on the ground and kicks him in the gut.
So if
you've trained it.
If you level it up, it turns into like a one-arm handstand where his feet will hit them under their chin. And that move was a great move to use against that tall guy because I would just bam him in his face.
Yeah, I forgot. I really liked, one of my favorite moves was just the sidekick. I forgot what it's called in the game.
Hold against leg, I think they called it.
Sidekick. Yeah, it's quick, but it puts him back just enough. And
the thing about the Mud Spider, unless you level it up, it's almost unusable in battle because he's so slow about sliding.
Yeah, it is very slow.
But
I've tried it and it worked a couple times, but it's just too slow.
It's much faster once you level it up, and that's why you gotta train.
And that's one thing I wanted to really mention. Yes, is the leveling up. And this is like it's like the perfect fit gamer game because it's, you know, martial arts and fitness, and you're leveling up and just becoming a better, you know, martial artist through training. And you actually have to train in the game to actually level up before, you know, if you don't like do any training, you're probably not going to level up many moves before the end of the game, before you get to the end.
I mean, you get a little bit of advancement when you sleep if you have it set to train all moves equally. So, like, I know there's a hack people do where, like, when you're trying to find warehouse number 8 and you sneak in, if you fail, a day passes. So many people sometimes will fail on purpose just to get their moves up, but that's cheating. Can't do that.
Right, yeah. I just like... Anytime there's an objective or a goal to obtain, and you have to wait to a certain time, my favorite pastime is just to go back either to the dojo at the time where they allow you to train, or to the many different spots you find in the environment where you can train.
Thankfully,
and just sit there.
I'm sure you knew this as well, but I love that there's like an empty warehouse at the dock that you can train in.
Yes, I did find that behind. What's her name?
I couldn't find it. I had to have the old man tell me. He mentioned it in a cutscene to me.
Oh, really?
Like,
he mentioned, go train here, and sometimes I will be there. I never ran into him anywhere.
That's true. He said, I think that was just him saying, like, sometimes I train there, so it's you can go there.
Oh,
I don't think he's ever there, personally. I could be wrong, but...
I never ran into him, but it's behind the lady serving lunch. But yeah, just the training in the game. I mean, literally, that's how you train in real life. Solo training.
For sure.
Is just, that should be most of your training. And obviously, when you have partner training, you get to work your range and timing. But when you're doing your solo training, you're perfecting your movements, and that's exactly what the game is doing, is making your moves better. And it's cool that you see that progression when you get to that certain point. There's something else I wanted to mention too about the martial arts, was that it's not pervasive throughout the game. You know what I mean? It's throughout the game, but it's not like all the game is. Like, sometimes when you see the trailers or whatever, you might think it's like almost like Streets of Rage or something, like you're just going through beating up thugs or whatever. But the gameplay is much more, exploration and like detective work, which I found very surprising and refreshing. Like, so then when you do get to the martial arts and your fights with whoever in the game, it's that much more exciting. It's not like you're doing this all the time and it just kind of gets repetitive. Speaking of like Assassin's Creed, where they have those repetitive tasks, sometimes, especially in the first game, they get better. They get better as it goes on, but especially the first game, is that in Shenmue, when you get into a fight, you're ready, like, because you've trained, you've been through like some time training, you see your moves progressing, you're like, all right, now it's time to test the moves out. And then you're like, all right, this one works well, this one doesn't work well in a real fight. Yeah. And that's really, again, what you kind of have to do in real life. When you're going through like your martial arts training, you have to go and try and spar and see which move actually works and which move is just bullshit. Because a lot of it is, a bunch of crap people make up and they don't test it out. So,
for sure. That's
one of the things I like to do with these video game moves, is like, if I like one of them, I'll test it out with my buddies or whatever and drill it out and then put it into like some sparring and see how well it works. And, I think a lot of these moves in Shenmue, I mean, you have your basic punches, you have your jab, you have your cross, you have your hook. I seen that uppercut. That's like the uppercut was a little, exaggerated. He goes like way up and stuff like this. Yeah. And like the kicks, most of the kicks are good as long as they're, not too fancy. He's got the roundhouse, the side kick, the front kick I saw. And those are like your basic strikes that you want to be working in the game and in real life. So it's like, and then some of the throws, those are really cool.
Yeah. The throws are something that I start to like use more when I replay the 70-man battle. They're really useful though and cool. Like, I don't know if the way I beat Chai it took me over 20 times to reload the arcade fight, by the way, because I usually lose it. It's freaking hard because there's no room. But like, the thing with Chai is, and maybe you found this in the end, was not to attack. It's block him and then do something to him. But one of the things that just decimates Chai is like doing back throw. Is this like, I forget the name of it. It's either demon drop or like Hazuki roll. He basically grabs him by the arm and flips backward and rolls his body weight on top of him.
Yeah, he flips him and then like lands on him, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That one is killer. And I'm just like, man, if you did that to someone in real life, they'd be done.
Yeah, no, that's called what's that called? It's basically, yeah, sometimes when you throw people, and that's a real throw too.
Yep.
When you throw people, you can either let them go or you can like land with them, and land your body weight into them. And if you do that on concrete or out in the street, the fight's over. I mean, it just knocks the wind right out of them.
Right. Right.
It's like bone on concrete. That's.
And I find with him, like, those throws are really great. And what my favorite one that's really hard to do, because often you're pressing forward to get close to an enemy and it'll screw up the move. But just forward back throw is where he grabs their shoulder buster. He grabs their arm, takes them to the ground, and breaks their arm. Dude, I love it.
I did that one on accident, and I didn't even. I was like, whoa!
It's so awesome because they're especially if they're like those little thugs in the 70-man fight, because they're just done. They're done after that. They're like, oh! It's so nasty sounding.
Yeah, and speaking of that 70-man fight, that was really cool. It made you feel really empowered. I mean, you fight like the weaker guys at first, and you get them like one sidekick in the gut, and they're like done. You're like, next. And then they just keep coming and stuff, and you're fighting with Guizhang or whatever.
Yeah. I love that team up with him too. I loved their dynamic.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
And speaking of that team up, is that beforehand, spoiler alert, is that you have that little scuffle with him before the 70-man fight, and I went through that a couple times because for whatever reason I had to quit the game and I didn't finish the ending, so I had to go through that a few times. But I would, when you would block his move and you would talk to him like, Guizhang, pretend to lose or whatever, he would like in my different playthroughs he would end up in different positions, like like a chicken wing lock behind the back, or like he would catch his leg and he would say the same line but in like different positions. And I thought, again, the details, I mean, that was really cool just to see that change up. It wasn't the same
that
thing.
That is incredible.
When you fight him, it's a free flow fight like all the others, but then once you get into like those positions, it's like it changes up. I was like, that's pretty cool. That
is cool, because like my first one was like I could just caught his leg on the side,
right? Or
something. But that's cool. I don't just going into the little chicken wing thing you're talking about, that's awesome.
But speaking about the other main part of the game, where actually you play more of the game through this, like the exploration and like the detective work, I thought it was really cool that he had a notepad, and then it's not just like in the start menu or something, like you have to flip through the pages, kind of like it reminds me of what Uncharted did with their the notepad there in game,
which is funny because Keith and I wish I had, it's over on my desk here, because of Uncharted, like in a lot of times when we go off to shoot these movies on location, sometimes you need something like that. So like I bought those little moleskin books, and like I keep it sometimes as like and it was all because of Uncharted, because I'm like, that's a great idea actually. And you know what? I don't use it so much anymore, but it is helpful if like you need to keep on track on something. Just jot down a little note.
Just like Rio.
But it started with Rio, and then Nathan Drake saw what Rio did and was like, that's a great idea.
And speaking of that, I think you mentioned in your video with Keith, and I wanted to ask you, is that this was the video game that inspired you to do martial arts when you were younger?
Absolutely. Because we were just so enthralled, and we wanted to do it. And I think I was in 7th grade at the time when we first saw it, and it was just it was a role model. We wanted to do that. And I remember way back when, my favorite move from Shenmue is the one Tom teaches you, the tornado kick. And I just remember us going out into my cul-de-sac and us trying to do it. We're like, how does he do it? And I remember we were like, I think I've mentioned this before, but we used to have like RCA inputs on our VCRs, and then it would go through the VCR into the TV. But you could throw in a VHS tape and record the gameplay that way. So we recorded the move, and I remember us like going frame by frame on a VHS, which when you do that, the image would like shake crazily.
Yeah, and you have to hit like tracking.
Yeah, exactly. It was nuts. But we were watching it, and we tried to break it down. We still couldn't do it. Later in life, So we started doing martial arts with this school, which was, we were very lucky at this school we did, because it was a Taekwondo Hapkido combination school, but they did so much more because the guy who was our master there, basically, we started doing boxing and incorporating other martial arts, because what he said was completely true. It's like, Taekwondo is great, but that cannot be your only martial art, because you are going, it does not teach you really to use your hands all that much. It's a lot of kicks in Taekwondo, so it's like, and I think if you were to fight a Taekwondo fighter, someone who's really good, and there was a dude who was way older than us and better, and when I would spar him, I found out how to beat him, was just move in close to him, and then he didn't know what to do.
Exactly,
And then I would punch him in the head, because he was so reliant on his legs. If instead of being scared and moving away, which is something I did, like, when you fight me, you can't catch me, motherfucker. I'm moving back. but you know, I just move in. Then he didn't know what to do, and I remember I punched him straight in his dome, and he got so mad. In fact, he got mad that he pushed me back and like did an axe kick right on my head. Obviously, you're wearing protection.
Yeah.
But it like bounced my head, and I did chip my tooth a little bit, just a bit in my front. So I had to go to the dentist and get my front two teeth kind of filed down to have them even again. But yeah, but he went a little overboard because his pride was bruised.
Yeah, that's just ego talking and stuff. And it's like, that's a big mistake in martial arts.
This kid,
you'll like train so hard in one martial art, and you don't realize that people don't follow your rules.
Right.
That you've been training all these years, and once they break through, break the box or whatever, think outside the box, it's just like, then you see the faults in your game immediately.
Yeah, it's much like...
Well, that's the thing. Like, that's the thing with the Fit Gamer fight moves, is that I try to, in the Fit Gamers Martial Academy, I'm showing people how to train these moves for real self-defense. I'm bridging the gap between, video game martial arts entertainment, movie entertainment, and then bringing it to, real life self-defense. So there's definitely those revisions you have to make. Otherwise, you're just going to get your ass kicked all day long.
Yeah.
Going back to the, detective work, you get that notebook.
Yes.
And then there was, sometimes where I would go through and then speak to somebody, and he would make a note, and there'd be a space for another note.
That is one of the most aggravating things.
What did I miss?
So aggravating for someone OCD like me.
Yeah.
Keith and I talked about this too, especially because to get full, I bet there's someone on the internet that has a full notebook, but to get full entries on a thing, it's like you need to maybe talk to a ridiculous amount of people, which sometimes you'll have the answer, which someone says, oh, I'm looking for Chinese people. Check out the Ajiichi restaurant. So many times you go there, or you already talked to the person that found the solution. Whereas the space before it that might be blank might be someone to be like, maybe you should check on this side of town. So it's just like stupid cues. But I do hate it at times when it feels like I skip 4 whole pages and there's nothing but blank. It's like, what did I miss?
I know. I feel like I missed something, and I know you can miss being taught martial arts moves if you don't meet somebody at a certain time and stuff like that. So
nice text tone.
It's very you have to pay attention to detail in the game, like when people talk to you. And what was cool that I found out, and I was frustrated when I didn't know this, was that so you'll talk to somebody and they'll be like, well, I'm not too sure, or they say to go look over here, or they give you some vague objective to do. But then if you talk to them again right after, they might give you some more details.
That's true.
And I was like, okay, so now I need to really interact with these people until I get the same response over and over, so I know I got the most out of their knowledge that I could obtain.
Yeah. That's kind of, for me, that's like a typical RPG type thing. If you play a lot of old Final Fantasies, sometimes you just got to click through until you see it repeat, because you might get more. Speaking
of RPGs, I liked how it wasn't too complicated in terms of your moves and stuff. You would just master. They would say master a move, which means now you have it in your inventory, or you can use it, but you still have to train it up. And I just liked how you didn't have to. there wasn't like a progression tree where you go down a certain way and now you're going to be a better fighter in this manner or this manner. You get to choose literally what you're training on the fly. So I really like that aspect of it.
I think if I ever play Shenmue 1 again, which obviously I'm sure I will, I think I'm going to change. I usually go to bed with training all moves equally, but I personally spend enough time training the punches and kicks. I should set that to the throws so I could get my throws maxed.
Agreed. That makes more sense because training the punches and the kicks, I don't think you can train the throws when you
cannot. The only time I think you can get a boost is when you use them against Fukusan. So there's a move that you buy from the antique shop called Arm Break Fire. I don't think I've ever seen the advanced movement of it because I set that as my quick move for the game, and when I would do Fukusan, fight him, not do him, when I would fight him, I was literally, that's all I would do. I would hit him in the rib, he'd fall over, and I'd do it over and over, because I think there's a second part of that move where you take them to the ground and do like an arm bar and break their arm or something, but I've never seen it or got it to that point, so.
And now, after finishing the game, I found out from you that you can bring your file over to the next game?
Yes, that was something that here in North America we were robbed of because, were we robbed of? No, I think so. I think it was that, unless I'm mistaken, the UK version, the PAL version, which we imported, was not able to accept the US save into it. So we had to start the game. It does, and Shenmue 2 allows you to start it a new game, and it has things, but that means you don't get to keep all your progress on moves, your money, all that stuff, and which is a pain in the butt. And same for any of the people who waited and got it on Xbox. There was no file to transfer. So on this one, this was the first time I was actually able to do it. The only thing I find annoying is like the combat system is changed in 2. I think it's a little much better. I recently talked to Keith about this. He actually prefers 1 because 2 is a little more fluid and frantic. Personally, I liked that because sometimes it's hard to get Ryo to turn around in the first game. But they kind of renamed some of the movements to do the moves. They like assign them to different combinations. So it's kind of like, why'd you do that? I was so used to doing the move this way. But that's because they added in a few new ones and whatnot. And I think Keith was bothered by the evade. Ryo can now roll, so it's like you can kind of just start rolling around ridiculous, like really fast. But I think it really helps getting around, especially when you're fighting like gangs of people. And I always said Shenmue 2 is much more action-packed. They still have that mystery and investigation, but you'll be doing a lot more fighting in that game. And not spoiling too much, but there's a part where you need to be able to get into this building where this gang is at. You need to get scouted as a fighter. So you actually have to partake in underground street fights to get scouted and win them. So there's a lot of fighting.
I can't wait to play that one.
It's cool. 2 is incredible. I need to put down the Red Dead Redemption 2 and do it and balance it because it's.
Speaking of Red Dead, great. I just started the first one. So and speaking of like, some newer games, you definitely see the influences of Shenmue in the newer games, especially like GTA 4.
How so?
Just like the pastimes.
Oh yeah, I guess bowling and all that.
Yeah, and just playing stuff like that. And speaking of that in Shenmue, like those are actually fun. Like the dark game, that was fun to figure out.
I love the dark game.
And like just going to the arcade and actually playing those games is it's hilarious that you can do that. But again, in the game, they purposely make times where you have to waste time doing something. And obviously training is always the best, but it's like, there's just so much to do and figure out, and there are incentives to do those things too. It's not just like,
and especially what I loved about that is back then in 2000 and 2001, when I was a younger kid, I didn't work during high school. I didn't have a lot of money, and there were less video games around back then. So it wasn't always this push of getting a game and I got to get through it because I got the stack of 25 games. So it was fun to just have this world where there were days where I didn't pursue the story. I just lived in the world, and I'm going to go to the arcade. I'm going to buy a soda and drink it and kind of buy some toys. And that was really cool to have that element of it.
Well, it also gave me the experience of playing Sega Saturn games, like you said before.
Yeah.
I never played any Sega Saturn games back in the day. But I noticed, too, that they had, like, some Virtua Fighter stuff in the game, like those little capsule toys, and also a lot of the martial arts moves look familiar.
So here's
Virtua Fighter.
Here's an interesting fact. Shenmue originally started as a project for Yu Suzuki, and it was going to be Virtua Fighter RPG. So many of the moves that Ryo does mirror Akira, who is he's the karate guy from Virtua.
I remember.
Yeah. And so that turned into Shenmue, and then we got this game, and that I'm going to be showing the audience here on PlayStation 2. Many years later, there was a game that I think was kind of a evolution of that original idea Yu Suzuki had. It's called Virtua Quest on PS2. This is a really cool game that I'm going to have to talk about in the future. It's an RPG where you go on this adventure, but you get trained by the Virtua Fighter characters and learn moves. It's a really cool game. Really cool game that not a lot of people know about. But that was, it originally was, going to be like a Virtua Fighter RPG, and I think Ryo really takes after that Akira character, because that was the main man of the Virtua Fighter series.
Speaking of cast of characters, you definitely find some in this game.
What do you mean?
Like, just with, Tom with, okay, and, the old man, the old hobo man who's like, come meet me by the blah, 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 and I'll teach you something, okay?
Yes. Dude, my favorite thing the old man says is, when you first meet him and buy them the coffee, he goes, oh, it's so warm.
I know, right?
And I love that.
Gotta love that voice acting.
Yeah, it's so great. The great thing about Tom and his accent is, I played half of this game in Japanese because I never experienced in Japanese, and then I switched back to English. And what's great is if you put it in Japanese, they have him pronouncing Japanese very terribly, as if it's like a Western, and he mixes in English words. So he'd be like,
really?
I guess let me think of a Japanese phrase, Genki desu ka? How are you? He'd be like, Genki desu ka? Or
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I also liked how
Watashi wa Nihongo ga skoshi wakarimashita. Very, very like that.
I liked how Tom had the dreadlocks and how they were physics based and stuff.
Yeah.
And you would see Nozomi's hair move on her head and stuff. Little details like that mean a lot. And Harry here, the little bird guy, he he experienced some of this with me, right? And when you would go to the harbor and you'd have the flock of seagulls or the birds or whatever, and you would run by them, they would fly away and come back and land, and then you could do the same thing. I just thought those crazy little details really do immerse you into the story and into the setting of these games. So
I tell you, the flocks that you would run through, that was incredible. Yeah. And some of this stuff to a lot of people is like, what are you guys talking about? But it's like, if you're a younger person watching this, man, you just never saw anything like this. And I know, and you at least, have the ability, even though you're playing this in 2018, you remember what it was like. So you can take your mind back to that day and be like, this is amazing.
Yeah, the level of detail in this game is incredible. And I just think the way they implement it, though, you can have tons of detail in the game, but if you don't somehow implement it into the gameplay, it's kind of useless, It's like you can have the best graphics in the world for a video game, but if you don't have the gameplay, the fun factor to go along with it, it's pointless almost.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think I mentioned this phrase to you before, is perfect game experience, So my perfect game experience, obviously it's different for everybody, but subjectively, is the game incredibly immersive? Do I get lost into the world? Yes. Is it fun? Yes. The gameplay is the gameplay fun? Absolutely. You have your brawls, you have your detective work, you have your exploration, and then is it memorable? Absolutely. I'll never forget my experience with Shenmue. it to me it ranks up there with like games like Half-Life, Metal Gear Solid. These games that are still talked about to this day, just because of how immersive they were and the way they changed the form of art that is video games.
Yeah.
I see them as similar to books now because of the advances we've made in technology to be able to have all this detail in a video game, like the dialogue, the story, the details of the textures, the environment, everything. Now it's like it's got as much detail as a book. Yeah. So it's like, why isn't it an art form of entertain? It's obviously there to entertain.
Absolutely. I think we'll get there, and that's like I'm gonna have another video out soon of what I consider an art game. How many times have you heard me come up and just scream that a certain game I'm talking about is art? Because, dude, they totally are. I mean, you actually have artists working on this. I think my mind goes back all the time to that Apsu game, which the director of it was previously an art director on other games, and it's very like these people are doing art. Whether you know what I mean. If you can consider Pixar art, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And it totally is. I mean. Yeah, video games are incredible, and I stand by my word that Keith feels the same. We may already be there already, that like video games are going to transcend popularity and just cultural influence more than film and movies, because it already makes more money than the film industry by far.
I would have to agree with that. It's getting close.
And don't get me wrong, I love movies, but I think, and Keith and I have talked about this a long time, and I remember the guy who was kind of a mentor to me and to Keith would get mad and argue that he's like, but his mind is on the Atari 2600. He has no idea of what games are, and for me, like that's why you say you love cinematic games, so do I. So I love like a Quantic Dream game where it's a blend of a movie, but yet I'm in somewhat of control. The feeling you get of being actively involved in a cinematic story is unbelievable and unparalleled that no film can give you. That doesn't mean you can't have a great experience watching a film. Sometimes you want to be told a passive story, and that's why movies will never go away. But one question I had for you is, would you suggest this game to someone in 2018, and what would prerequisite advice you would give somebody who maybe hasn't played a lot of older video games?
I would definitely say be patient with the gameplay. It's not like a lot of modern games where it's just fast-paced. You get your instant gratification with, leveling up your character or killing your opponents or whatever, Be patient with the game and go through it to where, act like it's almost like real life, because that's what you got to do in the game. You got to walk down the street and go to different people and talk to them. You can't just go run in there. It's not bam, bam, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. It's it's just, you gotta take the time, get the details down. I mean, the guy's got a freaking notebook, for goodness sake. You don't have that busy heads-up display, so you do have to go through the game. It doesn't hold your hand, but it's so refreshing nowadays that a game doesn't do that. If a modern game doesn't do that, I give it some of the highest praise I can, because it's just it allows me to think for myself, and that's what Shenmue does. It doesn't guide you so easily. It allows you to think for yourself, to problem solve, and that's one of the best things about the gameplay in any video game. If you can have a game to where you challenge the player to problem solve with a little guidance but not too much, then I think the overall experience is that much more satisfactory versus just running and gunning and getting to the next level.
For sure.
So,
and I'm kind of baiting you into this answer, but would you say Shenmue's now one of your favorite games?
Yes, absolutely. Because sharing your passion with the game, I was already really, really hyped for it, and it did live up to the hype. So I must say that was one of the coolest things about it, is that you didn't hype it too much to where it's like, oh, it's kind of boring or whatever. No, it definitely, you definitely had that feeling if you're immersed into the game. Yeah, that
I'm
feel.
glad to hear that, man.
Yeah, gratification.
And I'm excited for you to go on to number 2 because it's.
Me too.
I think if 1 blew your mind, 2 is just expands that. It is so much larger. You're gonna go on a crazy adventure.
Yeah, if it's anything of a good sequel, then it'll definitely outdo the previous one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Usually in movies, that's like the stigma. The sequel's not as good as the original, but here in video game land, it's usually the opposite.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming on Game Galaxy. This has been a long time coming. I wanted you to be on the show in some regard. I wish you could physically be here, but of course we're across the country.
That is my goal of 2019. I do want to come out there.
Oh, absolutely, man. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I would love to have you. You'll get to stay if you want to stay here, right in the Game Galaxy's room.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want.
For sure.
And I could just like look at all your collection and be like, dude, this is so awesome. You have the red ring. God damn.
Yeah. So hey, this video is not only going to be uploaded on my channel, but we're going to upload it on yours too. Is that correct?
Right. Yes. So anybody watching on my channel, be sure to head on over to Jamie's channel at Game Galaxy here on YouTube. I love his channel. He's got great reviews. He's a Sega fiend, so he's got great reviews on like Sega Genesis classics and a bunch of other Sega games. Like he loves Sonic, but he goes through and finds these awesome gems of video games and reviews them, and I really enjoy his reviews because he gives really good insight into the games, and then it really wants me, makes me want to go actually try these games out. Like most of the games that he does on his, that you do on your channel, I want to go check out. Yeah,
and that's the point. And it's not like I just sit around and do retro stuff all day long. Right. Those games are very important to me. But the whole purpose of why I started this channel is I think there's a lot of great games out there that people don't know. And my whole purpose is to bring light to that, to say, this is a great game, you should play it. I never just review stuff for the sake of it. I don't review stuff to just hate on it. If I'm going to spend the time doing a video on it, that means I like it. And I probably think it would bring value to other players. There's been some games that I bought that I thought, maybe that'd be interesting. Turns out it's garbage, and so I don't make a video on it. And so that's cool. And same, likewise, for all of my viewers. I have the link in to his Joey B's channel in the description, so go over there and subscribe. A lot of cool stuff involving martial arts, fitness, fight gamer, fit moves, all that kind of stuff. There's a wide variety of content on his channel. It'd be fun, and hopefully in the future we can actually do a video together where we're in the same room or go on an adventure. So that's what I would love.
If I come out there, we're definitely going to be doing some training. So.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to be doing some Hazuki martial arts.
Dude, we're going to do it in the top of the Hollywood Hill, like...
Yes.
There's the Batman Caves. Yes. Awesome place. We're going to have some great... It'll be cool. Wait. So thanks once again, Joey, for joining me for this video today to talk about Shenmue and to share with others how much you liked it. And thank you for all of you who have stayed with us and watched it this much. And for any of you who have not played Shenmue yet, absolutely go get the Shenmue HD re-release and play it. You can get it on PC, Xbox, or PlayStation 4. So absolutely go and get it. And thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.